are more than 100 unique styles of beer, each with their own set of ingredients, process, guidelines, history, and experience. If you're a beer lover, an industry leader, or somewhere in between, a better knowledge of beer style will improve your life and your work.
Welcome to A Sense of Beer Style, essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. I'm Julia Herz.
And I'm Jeremy Storton.
We're advanced Cicerones, beer judges, home brewers, and we're excited to guide you through the vast and wonderful world of beer styles. Hello, friends, listeners, followers, fellow appreciators. Jeremy and Julia here. Sense of Beer Style, yet another great show. Yay.
Yeah, this one is going to be fun because this is not from around most of our places. So
Right.
Kick us off, Julia.
Yeah, and we're in Beer Judge Certification Program 2021 guidelines. We will remind you that we're in the local styles for this Stylecast and others. And under Brazilian styles is Catharina Sour. Catharina Sour, I should say that slower. And, the gist is this is a great example of where homebrewers and pro brewers create things together. The style guidelines for 2021 literally designate the fact or denote the fact that in 2015, there was a workshop in Brazil between pro brewers and craft brewers in Santa Catarina. And that's when this style was created. And then lo and behold, the BJCP guidelines were smart enough to put it in. So they have helped grow it. So home brewers, yay. Pro brewers, yay. And yay to sessionable fruited beers. The style guidelines also talk about the kind of replacement category. If you're doing a competition and you don't have enough of these, which you might not, you could put these under fruit beer. But this is distinctive enough where, it's a refreshing kind of sour wheat beer with fruit. The fruit is commonly tropical. Clean lactic acidity can be, kettle sour is a common technique. But it's distinctive enough where it's not just catch-all fruit beer category for these. If you're after getting to know each beer style, you should start to dial in what this is about if you study it enough and actually get enough examples to taste, judge, and the like. So, with that wonderful history, I would say, Jeremy, why don't you take us through the ingredients?
Yeah, this is a beer. And for those of you who are thinking, wait a minute, that sounds a lot like a Berliner Weiss. Well, you're right. It is very, very similar to a Berliner Weiss, but there's more to it. So with ingredients, we're talking about Pilsner malt and malted or unmalted wheat. There's a little change. This is going to be a kettle soured with a lactobacillus, follow up with a fermentation with a fairly neutral ale yeast. Low bitterness, low hop use. They are not going to use Brett, which, if you remember from the Stylecast on Berliner Weiss, they sometimes can have some Brett character to them. This one does not have Brett character. But here's the main difference. The Catharina Sour is really all about this lactic kettled sour, but it really features local Brazilian fresh fruit. Any Brazilian fresh fruit is fair game, but the key here is fresh. And it doesn't necessarily have to have fresh fruit put into the boil kettle. You can use it in other means, but it can't come across as like, oh, this tastes like fruit candy or something like that. The goal here is to end up with a delightful, tart and refreshing sour in that Brazilian heat that showcases the beautiful flavors of the fresh Brazilian fruit. That's the kicker here as far as ingredients go. That would take us then to appearance. When we finally get one in our hands, what is it going to look like?
It's going to look often pale because of the Pilsner malt and the wheat malt, right? And then, So that's straw to gold. That's kind of that pale range. We'll talk about vitals in a little bit. And medium to high collar of foam with good head retention. Anytime you're fermenting with wheat, you are going to have that aggressive collar of foam that's stable, right? That sticks around. And so you want clarity too. And that's maybe another difference between Berliner Weiss and this style. But you could get it all the way hazy. So you're going to see clear examples, but it's allowed to go all the way hazy. That's to keep in mind. And then very effervescent or carbonated.
Yeah. When we finally get this glass and we're done looking at how beautiful this beer is, now we're going to start to smell it. Now, the obvious things we're going to put a pin in those real quick. First of all, I like to start with malt. This is going to be a very neutral, very subtle, low malt. If you're paying really close attention, if you're judging this, if you've trained your palate, you can probably pull some sort of malt essence out of it, but it's not going to be really distinct. So don't spend too much time looking hard for the malt, because it's not going to be there in the way that you hope it will. You should not smell any hops. Hops are there, but that's not the point of all this. It should have a very clean lactic impression. Now, lactic is going to smell maybe a little bit yogurty. It's going to give you the aromas that are going to make you think lemon. We just a reminder, we can't smell sourness, but we can smell compounds that make us think sour or make us think lemon or something along those lines. But the biggest thing, I'm going to take a pin out of the dominant aroma that we should get out of this, or that we're likely to get out of this, is whatever fruit that they use to brew this beautiful beer. And it could be pineapple. It could be any number of fruits that would come through, and that's going to be take the lion's share of the aroma. So just enjoy that. Just spend an extra minute smelling this thing, because it is just letting your brain know something good is coming your way. Speaking of, let's talk about the taste of it.
Great setup. And so this beer really flavor wise, as well as aroma wise, it's all about the fresh fruit flavor. Jeremy talked about fresh fruit character. You don't want
Yeah.
it contrived. You don't want it feeling like it came from a lab, right? Style guidelines talk about no jam-like or artificial flavors. That contrived notion is to be avoided, I think, in most beers, if you're really going to want them to have that character of quality. And so medium to high fresh fruit flavor. And then you're going to get a supported, but it needs to be noticeable, low to medium, clean lactic sourness. That word clean means you're not getting funky sour. This is not a beer with Brettanomyces or wild yeast character. This is a clean sourness. You heard from Jeremy about the malt not dominating. And so it can be there. If it's there, it's low, grainy, bready, but it's definitely not a big part of the first components that you're going to notice. And just like aroma, really no hop bitterness or flavor that you're looking for. That's not a component of this style. And you want it to be dry and finish, clean and have that tart, acidic, pleasing nature. And the fruit should really dominate the aftertaste. I think that's a great summary. And then one wild one from the style guidelines is it does say spices, herbs, and vegetables are optional in support of the fruit. I think that's another reason why the style isn't just catch-all into fruit category. First of all, you're going to not have the herbs and vegetables allowed in the fruit category. And once in a while, somebody's going to use herbs or vegetables as they would be using a fruit to flavor one of these beers. So keep that in mind, but it's optional and not something that you are looking to have. But if you do find it, you allow for that as long as it's in balance and supporting the rest of the character.
And balance is going to come up again in mouthfeel. We're going to talk about the B word. We've talked about the balance all the time, but we'll talk about that in just a second with mouthfeel. This beer really ought to be a light to medium light bodied beer. Keep in mind, this comes from the southern part of Brazil, which is in the southern hemisphere. So we're actually heading kind of back to colder regions, but we're not there yet. We're not in the colder regions. It's still warm. And so we want something light and easy drinking and refreshing. So that's where the mouthfeel this comes in, to be kind of a lighter to medium light body, medium to high carbonation to scrub all that wonderful food off our palate. This beer we'll talk about, it is similar to a Berliner Weiss, but it does have a little bit more alcohol because we're adding fruit to it. There's a little bit more fermentation, but there shouldn't be much alcohol presence in the aroma, the flavor, or even the mouthfeel. When we get to the acidity, this is where we're going to start talking about the word balance again, because the acidity can be low to medium high. That's quite a range. The goal is we want this to be balanced. We don't want to strip the enamel off your teeth. That's not the goal. It shouldn't be harsh. It shouldn't be a test of manhood or strength or courage to drink something like this. It should be balanced. But what does balance really mean? it means, like I like things that are sour. I like things that are sour more than someone else might like things that are sour. So balance is going to be based upon your perspective and your tolerance for acidity and other things. But the goal of this beer is it ought to be balanced. They're going to balance that with sweeter fruit and less sour fruit and try and keep all of these things um, kind of in check. You may get a hold of one that is a little bit more sour than you would like. Well, good. You can balance it with what you eat with it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Anyway, this is kind of the take on mouthfeel is it's very subjective, but this is kind of what we're looking for, what we're hoping for in a sample like this. Let's talk about style comparisons.
And in style comparison, I'll add to something Jeremy emphasized is, and it carries over from mouthfeel, you shouldn't have alcohol warmth in this beer.
Yeah.
You're going to sense alcohol, right? And the style comparisons, it ties into that. And you were alluding to it. It's a stronger Berliner Weiss, right? That's part of it, even though there's more going on than what you would find in a Berliner Weiss or different things. But so you're not really looking for that alcohol warmth, even though you are going to get a sense of the ABV that is certainly there, right? And so you want that fresh fruit and no Brettanomyces. And it's like a stronger Berliner in that way. I love how the style guidelines, because it's super fun to be like, well, we better find a lambic or a goose to try against this sour. So it's less sour than a lambic or a goose, right? Less sharp, less
Mhm.
bright, less tart. That's going to have much more developed acidity and no Brett again. So we don't want Brett in these. And so that is, if you're going to get something that's more bumping it to Brett, you also want to pay attention to wild specialty beer, 28C from the 2021 guidelines. So try it against a Berliner, look for it to be stronger. Try it against a Lambic and a Goose. It's also stronger in alcohol, even though it doesn't have a lot of alcohol, but it's going to be less sour than those two.
Yeah. All right, commercial examples. Everyone, I've studied Spanish, not Portuguese, so I'm about to destroy these. So, everyone, if you're driving right now, buckle up, cover me. I'm going in. The commercial examples listed are Armada de Neres Blumenau, Catharina Sour, Pesego, Istepo Gobera. I'm going to skip past that one. Araca Sour, Liffey Corolla Real, Unica Tangerine Clemenules. These are the ones that are listed. I invite people to, when you're done laughing at my pronunciation, then tell us how they really are pronounced. That would be fantastic. But you can look them up yourselves, or better yet, brew them yourself. The only one that I've ever found was actually done by collaboration with Deschutes Brewery and Chicha out in Western Oregon, and it was a fantastic example. So I'm looking for other breweries to who are doing these and let us know. These are beers that we really need to get out in the world, and so keep us posted. Anyway, vital. Let's talk about vital stats.
And I will also say that I am seeing these in homebrew competitions. So those
Fantastic.
don't have brand names per se, but they are showing up. So you can brew them as well. And so for vitals, they're lower, right? Original gravity 1039 to 1048. That's not a lot of sugar to start with. Final gravity 10004, which is very dry, but then it bumps up all the way to 1012. So that could be sweeter, believe it or not. Alcohol by volume range is 4 to 5.5% alcohol. So, that's more than sessionable. That's got a little bit of girth, not much, but
Hmm.
it's certainly not a Berliner level. And then international bitterness units, the style guidelines emphasize this, not at perceptible levels, 2 to 8, right? And I always consider anything above 8 barely getting to the beginning of perceptible levels. So it's there for bitterness and preservative value. They're adding hops for bitterness. Berliner Weisses often don't add bitterness. Or forgive me, bittering hops. These do, right? Just for preservative value
Yeah.
and the base note that it would provide. But then the color is 2 to 6, that pale 2 SRM to 6, which is dark gold. And welcome to Jeremy converting it to Play-Doh and anything else you want to do.
Yeah, when we're talking about the color, so keep in mind, when you add fruit to it, all the color is just the color scale is just out the door. Don't even bother with it anymore. But when we're looking at the base beer before it's fruited, 2 to 6 SRM or 4 to 12 EBC, European Brewery Convention. And the Plato, the starting Plato, right around 10 to 12, and a final Plato around 1.5 to 4, right around there. But for those of you who speak Plato, anyway, we can move on to glass and temp. Now, this beer, I'm not aware yet of a specific glass type that is designed for this, or even what you would typically have it served in. But for me, I'm always going to default to my stemmed tulip. I could see this, even like a French jelly glass would be fantastic for this. Just because I want this beautiful beer into my lips, while it's hot and I've got some food in front of me. So I don't need to overcomplicate it. But if anyone knows what glass is typically served, please let us know. The temperature wise, I definitely want this cold. Probably right around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 degrees Celsius. Maybe even refrigerator or cooler cold to start, knowing it's going to warm up a little bit. As it warms up, that fruit's going to express a little bit more, but we definitely don't want this warm, and it's going to be typically on a warm day to begin with. So cold is where it's at. What about pairings?
I would say pairings, keep in mind the fruit that's being used in this, because Pilsner and wheat
Yeah.
malt are such a beautiful base note that maybe, again, it's not a big emphasis of the style, or bringing some kind of bread flour notes to the table. And the common tropical fruits that are used, there's grape tree, there's palm. Those are going to bring certain flavor profiles to the table that I want to link and hook into. I do love the idea of breakfast with these. They're not too big in alcohol for sure. Some egg dishes, omelets, right? Maybe put some creamy tartar sauce on your omelet with some tarragon, and then get a Catharina Sour with dragon fruit. Like, I don't know, that's coming to mind. And then you've got toast on the side with like orange marmalade that you're putting on the toast. That's my breakfast with this beer. And I'm going to still be ready for the day and not plowed over from the sessionable aspect of the ABV too.
Yeah. What a great idea. As soon as you said breakfast, I immediately thought, ooh, I want this with a frittata or a quiche. And that would be, it would just be amazing, especially just how heavy those can be, and the crust of the quiche. I definitely want something sour, light, and very effervescent to scrub it and play with that, those profiles in my mouth. I could see this with, seafood. I just cooked up some tuna that I caught in Mexico. It would be amazing with that yellowfin tuna, some calamari, niçoise salad, and even what you covered breakfast. We're getting into dinner. Even at the end, if we're still drinking this and it's still warm out, serve me a creme brulee with this Catharina Sour. I dare you. It's going to be amazing. So I'm sticking to that.
I love it. So this is a great style for you to dive into and learn about things like the kettle souring, what that technique really means. Getting to know a difference between this and, say, a Berliner Weiss. It's a different approach, and there's a lot of nuance there. And to get you to be aware of an emerging style that hopefully continues to grow. And I like it because 2021 guidelines continued it from 2015. Sometimes styles get added and then they drop off.
Yeah.
So that's encouraging. And this is what beer is all about, is getting these creative, new, emerging beer styles to stick, evolve, and grow and be revered. So drink on, brew on, and thanks for listening to this show.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to A Sense of Beer Style, the essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. With advanced Cicerones, me, Julia,
And me, Jeremy.
Tune into the next episode as we continue exploring the world of beer styles and what to make of them. We encourage you to listen to the prepisodes to build your foundation and better understand beer styles.
And before the next episode, I'd like to ask you to review the show and let us know what you'd like featured in upcoming episodes. Until next time, here's to you and your sense of beer style. Thank you for listening. Cheers.